Digital Board Gamer here today. Today we have the top hot and not games from February to March 2025 with a surprise comeback from one game you'll hear about a little later. So if we look here, if you're not familiar, you can go to the Popular Now and you hit View More. And then here on BGA, they'll show you the top 100 current games. What I did is beginning of January, beginning of February, and now the beginning of March, I took a screenshot of each of the top 100 games and then created a list. That way I had an idea of what were the top 5, top 10, so on. What games were hot, what games were not, and I ranked them percentage change. First, I thought we'd look at the top 10. The top 10 did not change at all. The top 10 were still the top 10 from February. But the top 6 games have not changed since. It's been Ark Nova, Terraforming Mars, Catan, Wingspan, Azul, Ticket to Ride have been the top 6 for the last 3 months. Then there's been a little bit of change, 7 through 10, but it's just one back and forth kind of thing. We do have several games that are new to the list. White Castle is new to the list at 19. Now what makes White Castle interesting is it's a beta game still. So I expect it to actually rise a little bit more once it goes full release. Azul Duel is 24th. Popular game Azul is, so not surprising that that one shot up to 24. To give you some context, Azul is the 6th best game. King of Tokyo Duel came in at 27th, just right ahead of King of Tokyo at 28th. 75th, we have The Jest of Robin Hood. This is one of the games that I expect won't be around next month. I think the game's just a little too long, a little bit too complex for BGA's top 100. Then we had Spite and Malice show up as 90th. Game that came out in the beginning of January. And then Zenith came in at 95. A game that I actually covered. It was my second video I ever covered, beginning of January. So that was a nice surprise to the list as well. All right, now to the games that fell off the list. These are games that are no longer on the top 100. We have Fromage, surprisingly, because it's gone from 36 to 64 to 110. So it has a steep series decline. Isle of Cats, Veil of Eternity, Obsession, Soloist. Then we had Barrage fall off the list. Draft Wire Records fell off. The Crew, sadly, was 99th last month and fell off the list now. Bunny Kingdom. And then a game that was new to the list last month, Exploding Kittens, fell off the list as well. And then the hot from last month, where they kind of ended up now. Altered was number 5 last month, stayed at 33 like last month. Captain Flip went from 54 to 62. So a little bit of a decline. Super Mega Lucky Box went from 39 to 41. Race for the Galaxy went from 45 to 43, so it gained a little bit. And then Through the Ages went back down from 75 to 85. And so the not hot games, 4 of the 5 were games that came out recently, and they're continuing to fall. So Small World came out in January, started off really hot at 15, then went to 50, and now 77. Survive the Island, same case, 37, 76, and now 100. Then we had Orleans with 19, then it went 38, and then 54. Fromage, which we talked about earlier, is continuing to fall. It actually fell off the list technically. 36, 64, and then it's not on the list. And then Splendor, we talked about it dropping last week from 7th to 10th. It actually stuck right at 10. So now on to our hot for this month. Number 5, Pandemic. Interesting to see the Pandemic rose a little bit. It rose 16%, about what it dropped the month before. January was 63, then February 73rd, and now March it's 61. I'm sure you're all familiar with Pandemic, but it's a co-op game where you have to stop the spread of certain diseases. It's probably the most classic co-op game at this point. Number 4, we had King Domino. January it fell from 30 to 37, and then it regained that this month. So January was 30th, February it was 37, and then went back to 30th this month in March. King Domino raised about 19%. Then we had Love Letter. Love Letter was 92 in January, fell off the list in February, and then it came back to 88. For games that fell off the list, I rate them at 110 to give us a percentage. I don't know exactly where it went on the list because my data is just from screenshots, but we'll go from there. So it raised 20%. Then we had Distilled. Distilled, like King Domino, fell in February, went 67 to 85, and then went back to 67 again. So it had a raise of 21%. Distilled's a fun game where you're going to be making spirits. You have to upgrade your factory. You get recipes, make orders. It's a really cool game of making different spirits. And then for our number one hot game, Guilds of Merchant Explorers. It's new to the list last month at 80, and it went all the way to 22nd in March. That was a raise of 72%. I'm not sure it can sustain this level, but I do expect to see it next month. If you've never played Guilds of Merchant Explorers, it's kind of a flip and right in a sense where you're drawing on this map. You draw cards that allow you to explore on the map. You have to try to connect cities together, explore ruins. It was actually a lot of fun. I do really enjoy that game. And then for our not hot top 5, first up we have Small World. Mentioned earlier, it was on last month's list. It's continuing to fall. Like I said, 15th, then 50, and now 77. So it dropped 54% from last month. Small World is a classic game where you're going to be taking a race and a special power and merging those together, and then it's area control on the map. Number 4, we have Fromage, a cheese building game, also mentioned earlier. It is continuing to drop. It fell off the list this month, 36, 64, and then is not on the list. So it fell somewhere around 70%. So quite a bit fall off for it. Fromage I like too because it's a worker placement game, but it has this cool where you're spinning this wheel around, and then when the action points back to you, you get your worker back. Really cool mechanism there with Fromage. So if you haven't had a chance, I think it's worth playing. Then our last 3 were all new games from last month. I feel like this is going to be a common thing for these videos, is games shoot up, and then they're going to slowly fall off, and I think eventually they're just going to fall off. There's just so many games on BGA now that I feel like it's hard for a new game to break the top 100 and stay there for a long time. So here we go. 3 is Let's Go to Japan. It fell 173%. It went from 26 to 71. Let's Go to Japan is a game where you're going to be planning your route in Japan. You're going to be drafting cards, laying out on certain days, trying to fulfill bonuses, and then collecting icons that fulfill bonuses at the end of each day. I played it a lot last month. It made my top list of games I played last month. It's a game I really enjoyed and really liked playing. Number 2, Five Tribes, went from 21 to 72. Five Tribes is a reverse worker placement. It uses a Mancala style system where you're basically going to pick up a group of workers, and as you move to another tile, you're going to be placing one worker down at a time. And then the last worker you place, if it matches colors of other workers, you remove them. And the idea is you remove all the workers from that spot, hopefully, and you get a bonus and get to claim the tile. Classic game from Days of Wonder came out in 2014. If you've never played it, or maybe this spurs your interest, it's been on BGA for 2 months now and probably won't be on the top games for much longer. And then lastly, our top not game was Dead Cells. Dead Cells started late in the month of February at 14, and then this month it's at 57. Now, Dead Cells is a cooperative roguelike game. So if you've never played a roguelike game before, a PC game, you have to lose to power up. So it can be, and it will be, punishing to begin with, but in theory, you're supposed to level up, get new gear, and become stronger to allow you to beat the boss. Now, I do expect this one to stick around for a little bit because in April 1st, and this is an April Fool's joke, there's supposed to be another boss that comes out for that, part 2. And then sometime in summer, June, July, the rest of the content is supposed to come out, so you'll have even more bosses. But, don't let that stop you from trying it, because to get to the second boss, you have to beat the first boss. I was unable to. I played it a little bit when it first came out, but I have yet to have the time to come back. The one thing I'd say, I do think it's better with more people, but it is very soloable, which makes it easier to accomplish. And BGA does a great job of saving your progress, allowing you to continue on. So there's a little bit of a revamp of what's hot and what's not. A little bit better of a look, I think. A little bit more fun to run through these a little bit quicker. So if you guys like the video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. And as always, good luck and have fun.